Okay, here's a couple just new slides I put in, and then we'll try to process this. I know our time's getting away. I was doing some recent study about this chemical DMT, and did a show. It's show 157 if you want to look it up in the Archives of Future Quake. It's a neurotransmitter, that chemical that affects our body, perception events. It is thought to be produced in the pineal gland, a gland right in the center of your brain. It's right where your forehead is, and elsewhere in the body, but it is normally neutralized by other chemicals in your stomach that take away its unique properties. But you can overwhelm it. And in fact, what shamans have done in the Amazon and other parts of the world is they can get this stuff out of plants and come up with some kind of tea that they drink that overwhelms it. And what happens is, almost instantly, they start seeing these entities that start telling them information. And most of them say it's a very, very terrifying experience, and they have to become acclimated to withstand this experience. So what do we do in the modern West? We think, oh, well, this is something we ought to get in the middle of. That'd make a good story. So just one example, National Geographic sent one of their journalists down, and I was reading the article about it. They got in their little religious circle, took the tea. Almost instantly, this person began falling, seeing doomed souls crying. This person was not religious, by the way. They saw these doomed souls crying out that they were trapped and doomed for eternity, and they just felt this absolute terror. And then they saw these 3 thrones established with these beings on them saying, you'll never get out of here, there's no hope for you, and just absolute terror events. And these other people in the circle would try to work to get these people back out. And I would call them basically consistently hellish experiences. However, it's so strange that sometimes these circles, they'll take stuff and they'll see, for example, a serpent. Multiple people in the group take the drug and see the same thing. So there's something going on other than just hallucinations. Dr. Rick Strassman did actually in the 90s, a respected researcher, a clinical psychiatrist, did clinical trials that were funded at the University of New Mexico, right here in the state, in the 90s, and it was documented in his book, DMT, the Spirit Drug. And what happened was when he gave to all this large body of people, he's just clinically taking notes, within a few seconds of the drug administered, they began seeing these grays, these aliens. You know, we saw this description, and you know, when people used to say about reptilians and all these different ones, I, just wasn't too sure about it. But sure enough, all these people who were pre-screened, had really no knowledge of this kind of stuff, repeatedly kept saying they see these creatures, so much that the scientist begins to think there's something to this. It is not a mass psychosis, but these creatures started doing terrible things, rape and other reproductive experiments on them. That was just a regular thing they did, and they said these people had a sense that it wasn't like a dream where you'd come back and have a dream again. It was like time had passed. They would know their name, say, hey, we missed you while you were gone, bring them back in. So what's he going to do? He's got new experiments planned. He's got a new group that's going to do this more, but now there are churches now forming that are built around this chemical DMT. For some reason, they want these experiences, and that's, when you have a thirst for knowledge like Dr. Frankenstein that takes you into dangerous areas, you've got to ask, what is that addiction that's controlling you? So I just want to mention, when I saw this, I thought of Revelation 18, where you read that the great merchants of the earth, the globalist leaders, and the kings use sorcery, and the word there is used as Farmakia, using drugs to contact the spirit world, and through that they deceive the masses of humanity. And if you really dig into this, and I can't cover all this today, but you'll find evidence that these globalists and prominent world leaders do this very same thing. And I didn't believe it when I first started reading it until I started seeing more and more data, that the Bible was literal and real when it said this goes on. And that through this, they use all sorts of things to deceive us through our television sets, through the lies they say from behind the cameras, to all these things are techniques, and the Bible is real in what it says. And it's very interesting. You better be thinking about guarding your heart. We're getting into days where it's going to be very, very hard with the information you take in to pick. And regarding this whole pineal gland thing, I don't know what to make it. I'd study it further, but you see passages like in Revelation where it talks about creatures coming from the abyss and starts tormenting these people, and they sound a description just like what these people saw. And the only people protected are the ones who are marked on their forehead by God in this area to protect them from these spirits. So there's something going on. There's a portal that God meant to stay closed, maybe out of the garden for our protection. But we don't leave well enough alone, and we're convinced to open these portals, and terrible things are getting ready to happen. And you just better guard your hearts and only let the Word of God and the testimony of whatever upright and pure come in there to be able to understand these things. Okay, getting a little bit closer, still in the ancient world, the Oracle at Delphi. Everybody came, citizens, kings, everyone came to this location at Delphi to see the oracle to get answers. And the reason why is there was a group of priests who interfaced with the people, and then there was this oracle that would actually lean over some area where they were burning some leaves and would sniff these noxious fumes and say these mysterious words that the priest would then say, well, here's the answer you're looking for. Here's what's going to happen in the future. Sort of like your magic 8-ball, so to speak, you know. They'd ask them the question, they'd do their bit, and they'd give them the answer. So the whole concept of oracles to get information from the other side lasted for over 1,000 years. And there would be oracles that would take their place. Well, it was interesting. They had a sliding scale. If you were a regular citizen, they charged you 2 days' wages. If you were a military person, they assumed you had more money, they raised their amount. So we see a merging of sort of a little business growing out of this whole process of contacting the other side. That lasted really in force until about AD 362. The oracle said, the age of Apollo is over, because they felt Apollo was down in that pit telling them, which is very interesting because you read the Hebrew version of his name in Revelation being in a pit as well. But they said, oops, it's over. And so it was thought to have died out. But now we have evidence that people are going back and doing these same practices today. They're trying to set up the same thing and get oracle data, reproduce the techniques and rituals that they did. And then another quote from her, Satan, the serpent of Genesis, is the real creator and benefactor, the father of spiritual mankind. Now remember back in Sumer and their beliefs of Enki and Enlil? We've seen those same shadows going throughout history. There's two versions of what happened in life and what impacted mankind. Makes things simple, two choices, A or B. Okay, then the concept she came up with, these Atlantean or Lemurian root races, was actually used by Hitler to espouse Aryanism, that there was some pure race of elevated capabilities that came back from the areas of Tibet. They migrated here. And that whole belief system, and that these other people were inferior races, was used particularly by the SS. They had a completely clean conscience when they killed the Jews, because they were taught that these people would be reincarnated as something worthwhile. Currently, they were not worthwhile, but they would come back better. So their belief system, religious system, completely explained and exonerated their consciousness to do the horrible things they did in the concentration camps. It's a surprise how many people don't understand that the swastika, the veneration of swastika, came from Blavatsky and from the New Age movement through to Hitler when this was presented to him. Now, he had a spirit guide, and he actually began taking drugs to actually contact the spirits through his mentor, Dietrich Eckart. And one of Eckart's quotes on his deathbed before he died, after he had trained Hitler, he says, "Follow Hitler. I've initiated him into the secret doctrine." Same kind of language used in the New Age movement. Opened his centers of vision and given him the means to communicate with the powers. And amazingly, he has this amazing rise to power. And so, in fact, it goes to the fact that, they've actually found these Tibetan monks in Berlin that they had kept there to use for their religious purposes when they invaded Berlin, the Allies. Okay.